All right, hello and welcome to another episode of the Choose Strong podcast. As you can see here, I have an amazing guest with me today. Listeners, I am so excited about this episode. I know that you will be greatly encouraged by the story that we're going to hear today. And but first, I just want to say hello to everyone that has just started their run. Well done for showing up. We have a very talented runner here with us, and so we're going to talk a little bit about running. But as always, I just want you to know I'm very proud of you for showing up today. If you are driving, and hello, kids, if you are listening, know that we are rooting for you, and we hope that you have a wonderful day, whatever it is that you're doing. If you're going off to practice or to school, know that we are rooting for you. Now, I'm actually going to have our guest introduce herself. Just give us like 2 lines. I'm going to give you the microphone for a second.
Thank you, Sally. Thanks for having me. My name is Jinghuan Liu Tervalon, and I used to live in Altadena, and I'm a runner and I'm a writer. And I work in data in my day job.
Yep. Now, I did this with our last guest.
Yep.
We do a lot of talking about running on this podcast, but I actually just want to start with your name. I told you right before we start, I said, I looked up your name and I looked up the meaning. And so I just want, I know for everyone listening, they're like, why did Sally invite Jinghuan on? And it's like, well, there's a lot of reasons. First and foremost, you are my friend.
Yes.
And from the time I've met you, which I think is NRC. Was it NRC? Did you come out to the Nike Run Club? I'm trying to think when the first time was that I met you.
I think in person was your book event.
Yeah, in person was the book event. But did you ever come out to the Nike Run Club events? Okay. With Blue? Yeah, that was like many, many years. But I know we always had like over 100 people at that. So it was just chaos. Either chaos on the track or the long runs wherever we were. But the LA run scene is very strong.
Yes.
And but I'll tell you what, one of the things that I was actually surprised was just how supportive you were of my book. And I even remember telling Eddie when you had reached out, because you do writing for Women's Running, I think Outside Magazine as well. You are an incredible runner. I mean, writer. Well, runner and writer. You are. You are a beautiful writer, though.
Thank you.
And, when I released Choose Strong in 2023, I didn't, I knew it wasn't going to be a New York Times bestseller. I actually didn't
Not
think.
yet.
Yeah. I didn't really think it would fit well in a lot of the running books that were being released at that time. And so when you reached out to me about it, I was really surprised. But I think just on a very human, very personal level, when you and I got on the phone, we had the conversation about the book. I remember hanging up and thinking like, wow, you were so kind to me. Aww. And then what you wrote an article on my book, you did a review on it, and then you put on the most incredible event for the book, a big running event at the run shop there in Pasadena.
Yep, team effort.
We had an incredible turnout. Yeah. I mean, it was one of the most amazing events I think I've ever done. It really touched my heart. And I'll never forget that, because you were always very supportive of me and my message and my book when I knew it wasn't going to be very popular in some different areas, but I just want you to know that really meant a lot to me.
Thank you, Sally.
So, but I did look up your name.
Okay.
And
what did you find?
So I found that you're well, because it's 2 parts.
Right.
So the first part, Jing, is meaning quiet, still, peaceful, or tranquil.
Yep.
And then the Juan part is joy, happiness, or delight. But I loved what you told me before.
Yep.
It was your grandpa who named you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So give us a little backstory on your grandpa naming you.
Yeah. So my grandfather was the one that gave me the name, and he was hoping for a peaceful, quiet girl. And obviously I'm not. And I was the firstborn grandchild in the family. So they had a lot of hope for me to be sort of the archetypal good Chinese woman who would, put their family first, be a main caregiver, be quiet and obedient, and turns out I'm none of that.
Well, I do believe since the time that I've met you, you are someone that reflects joy.
Oh, thank you.
And
Thank you.
you have a brightness about you.
Oh, thank you.
And I really picked up on that when we did the book event. You are a powerful voice.
Oh, thank you.
And so that is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you
Yeah.
here today as my friend. But also, you have a very beautiful story. Outside of what you do, listeners, Jinghuan, she's, like I said, an amazing writer. I know you used to work for Coca-Cola.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you no longer do, or do you still consult for them, or?
I work for a different company right now.
Okay. And then you do a lot of writing for different magazines. Listeners, check out her Substack, more personal writing, which is what I stumbled upon. And I'm actually going to bring up one of the stories on there. That's actually where we're going to kick off.
Aw,
So,
okay.
But you're an incredible writer. And just in learning a little bit about your life story, how you grew up, coming here to go to college, and having your son Sammy. So you are a wife and a mother of two. You have Sammy, who's 18
17.
or 17.
17.
He's a senior.
He's a senior.
We'll
Oh my
talk
God.
after the show about what that's like when your son graduates. He wants to go to college.
Oh my God, I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, I know. And then Colette is
she's 9 years old.
She's 9 years old.
Yeah.
So you have a son and daughter, and they are at two different spectrums in the education right now. So elementary school and high school. Yeah. So you're busy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Busy.
And you've been running for 16 years now? About 16 years?
Yep. I started running after Sammy was born.
Okay. And you are, what's your favorite distance? I see your track workouts all the time. I have so much respect. You hammer on the track. You're doing some hard, intense running a lot. What's your favorite distance?
To compete in?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, maybe 1,500.
1,500, yeah. That's one of the most painful distances.
It's very painful. It's very painful. Yeah, it's very painful.
Yeah, so that's just incredible. But I'm going to start here. I'm showing you a picture.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
And for those of you watching on YouTube, or if you're on the Spotify video, this picture will pop up, and I'll make sure I send that to you. But this is your dad.
That's my dad.
Balancing you on his hand.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what. I read this article. I've read a ton, by the way. I read a lot of what you read just in preparation for this podcast.
Yep.
But I don't know why this was the article that I was like, I want to start there. I think that there was so much like raw emotion in this Substack that you wrote. It was really beautiful. And it's, I think on a very personal level, it's like so opposite from how I grew up.
Right.
And I don't know. Everything from him making wooden swords for you to the cigarette story to just this different perspective that he gave you. He was clearly a very strong man in your life that impacted you.
Yeah.
And no doubt has shaped who you are today. Yeah. And why you are a strong voice. I really do believe the strong voice and the joy that you have, you knew that you were loved from a very young age by your dad. So we're just going to start there, and I'm going to let you take that.
Well, you're already making me cry. It's a good start. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm the oldest in the family, and we lived in a 3-generation home. And when I was growing up, I was raised pretty much like a boy. That's why in the photo I had really short hair. My parents really believed in, raising me as they would raise a son, and they instilled hard work from a very young age. They loved me. They obviously had very high expectations of me. Growing up as the oldest definitely shaped me, because I worked very hard to get to sort of a very exclusive college. I came here for grad school. I had a lot of early on educational successes. And I thought, okay, just because I've done really, really well in school and I got into the school of my dream and I came here to the US on a scholarship to go to graduate school, I thought, I'm done. I'm done. Life is easy. I got this figured out. And I was kind of wrong. But speaking of my dad, I had this funny dream. Some listeners might know this. Our house got burned down in the Eaton fire. So a week after the incident, I think we were still staying at a hotel as temporary housing. I had this dream that I was making dinner and then smoke started coming out of the ground. And I had this dream that I was started to like be surrounded by fire. And I started calling for my dad. And I woke up calling my dad. And I felt all of a sudden like, oh, okay, this is how I'm processing my trauma at the moment. Yeah.
Wow.
But my parents definitely played a huge role. My mom too. She's, if you picture like a tiger mom, she's probably that. My dad was the fun dad, breaking house rules. My mom is the one that upholds the discipline, making sure you get things done, making sure, your grades are great, all those things. So they're a really good match and balance. Yeah.
What was it like growing up as a little girl? You said that you were a swimmer. You're actually very competitive, and you're a great swimmer.
I love swimming. Yeah.
And then your parents were like, all right, now we're only focusing on education.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was born in 1982. For those of you with some, Chinese history understanding, China in the early 1980s started this policy of one single child policy where, each couple can only have one child regardless of gender. So I was born under that, and my parents understood that they kind of raised me with the assumption that will be their single child, and I will need to be sick in order for me to take care of them. I have to be, financially independent, successful. So they put a lot of pressure on, me being successful academically early on. I loved swimming. So I started swimming when I was about 5-6 years old. My dad taught me, and then I joined the swim team. And I trained really hard in primary school and middle school. But then eventually they pulled me out of the swim team. Their reason was, in order for you to become a professional athlete, your path is very narrow. You're going to either make it to the Olympics level or you're not. And if you're not, which is very likely, then how are you going to make money? How are you going to support yourself? So they pulled me out of the swim team early on. And I was at that time a little resentful. I thought, this is the thing I'm truly passionate about. And it wasn't until recently that I truly understand, why they did it. And now I'm like, okay, I think I agree with that decision. But at the time, I didn't really like it. I wanted to continue to swim. The path towards a very sustainable athletic life is very difficult. As a lot of professional runners, swimmers would know. Even in this country, in the US, it's hard to make a living. So I'm grateful for the life I have now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you ever swim? Do you ever get out and swim
I do.
now? Yeah, it's cross training.
Yeah, I love swimming.
Yeah.
So I would go to the Rose Bowl Aquatic Center and swim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, your dad was really playful.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a story that you talk about, which I thought was so fascinating. So it actually was your dad trying to make his own Coke.
Yeah.
His own Coca-Cola.
Oh my gosh, yes.
As a little girl.
Yeah.
If you can just share that story, it's so precious.
Yeah. So Coca-Cola at the time was expensive.
Yeah.
When soda first got introduced to China, coffee and even McDonald's, it was all very expensive. My dad had some and he really loved it. I don't know how he was trying to hack into a recipe. So he had baking powder and some other stuff and maybe sweetener, maybe sugar and maybe coloring stuff. And he mixed it all together. He found an empty Coke bottle. He poured everything in there and sealed it.
I love it.
Hid it somewhere. The next day, hopefully everything's fermented. We drank it. It was awful. It was the most awful drink. But that's how I was raised. My dad is super artistic. Like he would create stuff. Like he made wooden sword for me.
That's so cool.
He loved classical music, all these things. He's very artistic, very expressive. My mom, she's a lot more closed off. In a sense, like she always tells me, say as little as possible. Don't overshare. Keep your distance with people. She's a little bit more careful in that sense. My dad is a lot more open and wants to make friends and, hang out. My mom, she's a little bit more reserved. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Function Health. Function Health provides transformative insights into your body that go beyond what's available at a standard doctor's visit. And this has been a game changer for me. I got into Function Health this year, and it's been incredible. I've already had a couple blood tests. It's been very insightful. It's helped with my diet. And now that I am in full-blown bad water 135 training, this type of testing is very, very important for me. So Function is basically an all-in-one health platform. It starts with over 100 lab tests across your whole body every year: heart, hormones, liver, kidneys, thyroid, autoimmunity, cancer signals, toxins, nutrients. Lab visits are at one of 2,000 locations across the U.S., and it's just $4.99 per year. So basically, if you break it down per day, that's $1.37 per day. All results are tracked over time in one secure place with insights from top doctors based on your specific findings. Function is 5 times more testing than a typical physical and would cost you over $10,000 on your own. They don't try to sell you supplements or pharmaceuticals. There are no perverse incentives here. This is just the most powerful way to really own your health. You and your family should be on Function. And guess what? You can skip Function's waitlist at functionhealth.com/Sally McRae. That's functionhealth.com/Sally McRae. I love this part in the article. You say there were plenty of hugs and kisses, and I feel like I've passed them on to my kids too. The best hug from Dad was one time after trying a cigarette and getting caught. We hugged tightly into a ball and hid under a big couch to avoid Mom's seething rage. I was perhaps just 6 years old.
Yeah.
We giggled like teenagers in trouble and never smoked another cigarette after that day.
Yeah. My dad tried everything with me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think if I was like, as I was reading that, I was laughing and I was like, I can't imagine Eddie smoking a cigarette with Mackenzie when she's in kindergarten.
Right? You would be outraged too.
So you talk about your dad as being a very playful person that was affectionate. He gave you hugs and you had fun with him. And then as you grew older and your parents were encouraging you in your education, what was the pathway for you when you graduated from high school? You came here on a scholarship to go to college. What was that like for you leaving? I mean, you're going like 6,000 miles away.
Yeah. So actually, when finished high school in my local, in my hometown,
Which is where? What's your hometown?
It's in Hebei province. It's in a small city called Xingtai of 6 million people.
Okay.
And then I went to Shanghai for college. I went to Fudan University.
Shanghai?
Yep.
So where did we went to Tianjin? Where is your hometown close to there?
Close to Tianjin, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went there after the first year we were
remember.
married.
You taught English.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my family is from north. A lot of my grandparents, siblings and cousins, they still live in Tianjin.
Oh, okay.
Tianjin is a beautiful city.
Yes.
With a very weird dialect, almost their own language.
Really?
Yeah, but that's where our family's originally from.
Okay.
And we lived in Xingtai, and I went to college in Shanghai. That was a big cultural shock because I went from a small city to an even bigger metropolitan, and it's very sophisticated. Shanghai, they have their own dialect. And then I got a scholarship to come to the U.S. right after college graduation.
Amazing.
That experience was also very interesting.
Could your family go with you? Like, did your parents come and drop you off and help you move in? Wow.
No, I flew on my own. I did not know anyone. So I got a scholarship to go to Kent State, which is in Ohio. And I had... I always like it when people say, I came to the U.S. with $5 in my pocket. I had more than that. I think I had $1,000. So we exchanged money. So I had a little bit of money. I came here. I did come on a scholarship. I had a graduate assistant scholarship from Kent State. So with the money that my parents give me, I paid first month's rent and I bought a Mac. I bought a computer. And I was very frugal. And the stipend from the graduate assistantship, that has allowed me to, continue to pay rent and have pay for my living expenses. Yeah. So I was very grateful for that opportunity. But it was a huge, huge cultural transition. Imagine you go from, a metropolitan Shanghai where people live in apartments is always crowded. Everywhere you go, you bump into people elbow to elbow. And then I all of a sudden get dropped off middle of nowhere in Kent. And I did not know how to drive at that time. And to go to any Chinese grocery store, I had to rely on the Chinese Students Association. We would carpool, drive an hour to Cleveland to get groceries. And I had nowhere to buy clothes. We're in Ohio, and there's no clothes my size. So I used to go to Walmart, the girls section, to buy clothes. Nothing would fit me except for the girls section. Yeah.
Wow.
That was a big challenge. The other thing was, even though it was, middle of the country, I was like, wow, I came to this graduate office and all the cabinets were open. The cabinets where you can get office supplies like notebooks and pencils. I'm like, wait, it's all open? I can just grab a pencil. I don't have to pay for this. I was very shocked at how affluent it is, even though it's a college town. It's not the most affluent city, obviously, by any means. That was my impression. Like, America is very rich. You can just get a pencil for free. And everyone has cars. That was, even though it did feel inconvenient because I was very used to living in a city where you take your subway to different places. Yeah, that was a big cultural shift. Also, I went to a very exclusive college. I was very used to working under pressure. You're among the best and brightest in the country. I worked my ass off in college. And in graduate school, all of a sudden it's like, pressure's gone. I'm like, oh my God, what do I do now? Every little thing I did, my teachers and the professor advisors, they were like, this is great. So all of a sudden I did not have that pressure. And I kind of didn't know what to do with myself. So I was supposed to do a PhD program. I got so bored.
Wow. And you got bored with your PhD program?
I did not do my PhD.
Oh.
I finished the master's part and I just left. I got my Master's of Arts degree, and I just left.
And that was Ohio still. Yeah. So you were in Ohio for, was that 6 years?
No, I was in Ohio for only about 2 years.
Oh, okay. Because you did the first part of your schooling in Shanghai.
Yes, my college.
Oh,
and then came for graduate school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you were there for you said 2 years?
Yeah.
And then so what did you do? You were done with the school, and then you were just kind of like, I don't know what career to have or where to go from here. And so what was the next step?
I started dating.
Did you stay in Ohio?
No, obviously not.
So how did you get yourself out of Ohio? Like, what was how were you able to just get up and go? Did you find a job somewhere else, or yeah?
No, I did not. So, um, in college, we watched a lot of American shows. That's how we learned English. And one of my favorite shows,
Mm-hmm.
not to surprise everyone, I loved Sex and the City.
Yeah, yeah, that was so popular when we were
So
in college.
popular.
Yes.
We watched each episode. That's how I learned. So the first spring break I got was, in April, I was like, I got to go see New York City.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ride the subway. I want to see the brownstone apartments. I want to feel like I'm Carrie Bradshaw. So I went to New York City, and I met a guy, and we fell in love. We ended up having a child together. And I finished grad school. I followed him. He's a chef. He's an extremely talented chef. And the story didn't have a happy ending. I ended up being a single mother, but like you were talking about earlier, peaks and valleys of my life. That was the first significant valley.
So I want to pause there because that's and I know for our listeners they're relating to your story already. Because obviously having a baby, you guys you didn't plan for that.
Nope.
Yeah, and that changes our lives. When we become a mother, even if we plan to have children, it changes our lives. But so. What I'm seeing already is just you were taking big chances from the time you were a teenager, going off to school, leaving your family, leaving your home country, moving to Ohio, and even the simplest things of trying to figure out where you can buy clothes that fit you, food that you're going to enjoy.
Yeah.
And then those years end, and it's like, what do I do next?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that you were drawn to New York, and then so you went through graduate school in New York then?
I finished in Ohio.
Okay, so you moved to New York, and you were just out exploring, basically.
Oh yeah.
Amazing.
I think I was trying to maximize my sense of freedom.
Yeah.
Growing up, it was all planned, rigid. You have to get to a certain grade. Now, you've done with primary school. You're gonna make it to that top middle school. After that, you're gonna make it to the best high school. My mom's words: if you didn't make it to that top high school, I'm going to break your legs.
Yeah.
And then you're going to make it to that top university. After that, you're going to make it to America. All that, like, I had steps and plans. In grad school, I'm like, the shackles are off. No one knows what to expect out of me anymore. I'm in America. It's a land of freedom. Let's do this.
Okay,
I want to date.
Yeah.
I want to date men.
Yeah.
I did not have a specific plan because I feel like I can finally breathe. All my life, I got to do this. There's a lot of expectations. Yes, as the oldest daughter of the family, granddaughter of the family, there's path laid out. And by leaving that all behind, I'm like, okay, I'm finally free. So let's do some damage. Let's do some stupid shit and get out of the system. And I did a lot of stupid things. Yeah. And I have to say, like, definitely a lot of foolish things and mistakes of the youth. But now looking back, that was a fun time, and I'm glad I made those mistakes. Yeah.
Well, you have a wonderful son that came from that.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was that like for your parents when they found out you were pregnant? Were you working at that time?
I was not working.
Yeah. So you were enjoying yourself. You were in love.
Yeah.
Living in a place that was like that you had only been watching on TV.
Yeah.
So, and I even remember being in high school and college. New York City has always had this pull this like there's just something about it. We took our kids there for the first time this past summer, and it's so funny. They already knew where they wanted to go. They had in their mind what it was going to be like.
Yeah.
And there was definitely points of disappointment when they're like, "That's not what it's like," and then others were like, "This is so cool."
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So there is a lot of dazzling that happens
Oh, yeah.
in New York City.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're young, you're in love,
Yeah.
you're away from home and maybe the rigidness of expectations of
Yeah.
being at home. What was it like when you had to tell your parents that, hey, your first grandbaby is on the way?
My mother didn't speak to me for a
Oh,
year.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. My dad was the go-between person. She was
Mm,
extremely angry. Um, I was 23 at the time. I
mm,
mean, by any standard, that's very young to be a
mhm,
mother. Um, and we were not married.
mhm,
And my mother was just heartbroken.
mm,
She, I have always been her pride,
mhm,
this very academically successful daughter of hers. She had different plans for me.
mhm,
And when she found out, she was just entirely angry.
mm,
And she didn't speak to me. I wrote them actual letters that I got, I sent all of them home. She didn't speak to me for about a year until after the baby was born. And then they came
mm,
over to see the baby.
mm,
Yeah. It was hard. But from my mom's perspective, like I did something so shameful.
mm,
Having a child out of wedlock and having a child that early when you don't have anything established, you don't have a career, you don't have your own money. She was disappointed.
mhm,
So I understand why. But yeah, it
mhm.
was personally painful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is painful when
Yeah.
it's that's your family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so so Sammy was born.
Yep.
And is it Samuel or
We
Sam?
call him Sammy. Now he goes
Okay.
by Sam.
Sam, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
so does, so you had Sam.
Yeah.
Did you stay in New York City very much longer? I mean, obviously now you're here in California.
Mhm.
What was that whole transition like? What was life?
Yeah.
Because we had Mackenzie when we moved to Washington, D.C., so totally
Mhm.
away from family.
Mhm.
We weren't estranged from family during that time, but
Mhm.
that was even hard,
Yeah.
being away from family. You're on the phone and eventually they fly out, but
Yeah.
I can only imagine how painful that must have felt because it's scary. The first
Yeah.
time you're pregnant is scary, especially when you're young
Yeah.
and your body's changing, and then
Oh,
you're like,
yeah.
"Wait, this has to come out of me at some point," and then that part's scary.
Yeah, yeah. So we moved around a lot because of his job.
As a chef.
Yeah, as a chef.
Mhm.
So we moved first from New York City to Idaho. Um,
That's a change.
yep, yep. Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Uh-huh.
Beautiful place. And
Yes.
then after Sammy was born, when he was around 3 months old, we moved to LA and we lived in Redondo Beach.
Oh, I love
That's
Redondo.
that's how
Okay.
we ended up in LA.
Okay.
Yeah. When my parents visited right after Sammy was born, we were all in Idaho at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you guys landed in LA,
Yep.
and then how long, because this is around the time you started running,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
take us through that step. So
Yeah.
Sammy's now 2 years old when you moved to Redondo?
He was 3 months old. Yeah.
Okay.
Infant still. And eventually, my relationship with Sammy's dad came apart and he left. Sammy was just around a year old. That's when I started running. Obviously, I was entirely heartbroken because I thought, I found the love of my life. I thought this was the man that I'm going to end up spending the rest of my life with. I started running to just, pick myself up again because I felt like I was broken into thousands of pieces. It was my first major heartbreak. Um, Running was so accessible at the moment. I could always go to a pool, but it involves a lot more work. Running, I just need a pair of shoes, and I went out just to run and to start to heal myself. And the more I run, the more confident I would feel. And at that time, obviously, because Sammy was so young, I still wanted to lose some weight and all that. So running stuck with me. I would go from the apartment that we used to live on Avenue G in Redondo Beach and run it all the way to the beach, to the strand, and run along the strand to Hermosa Beach and come back.
I
Yeah,
know
it's
that
fun.
route.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, you know that route. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place. But that's how I first started having a little bit more confidence in my own ability to do things.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So running was a very healing path for you.
absolutely.
And then you were a single mom raising Sam, and
Yep,
you had to then figure things out for yourself.
yep.
What did you do next?
I was very lucky to have found a job. So I my first job was in market research. I was very lucky to start doing transcripts. When you see focus groups and, one-on-one interviews with consumers, they always have, recordings and someone would transcribe them. So that was my first job. I did transcripts for these things. So I was able to work from home. Eventually that part-time led to a full-time. And that's how I started working in market research. And eventually I started working on the brand side. So instead of being on, the supplier side, I worked on the brand side. My first corporate job was with Pharmavite at Nature Made Vitamin Company,
Mhm.
and then I joined Coca-Cola.
I think we have some Nature Made supplements in here somewhere.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a very popular
yes,
brand.
very,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But now I've spent most of my career in the corporate side, and yeah, it's been another fascinating growth journey too.
Mhm.
Yeah,
This episode is brought to you by Blissy. Blissy offers premium sleep and wellness products crafted from the highest quality 100% mulberry silk. Their signature Blissy silk pillowcases, which are on my pillows right now, is designed to improve skin, hair, and sleep quality. Who knew that a pillowcase could be the reason why my skin has blemishes and my hair is breaking? Now, let me tell you just a few benefits of using these pillowcases. They have anti-aging properties, reduce fine lines and wrinkles over time. They eliminate frizz, preserve hairstyles, and protect color-treated hair. And they are clinically proven to not clog pores, unlike cotton. Now, these have been a game changer for me, and I'm so excited I get to offer this incredible discount just for you, our listeners. Blissy is offering 60 nights risk-free plus an additional 30% off when you shop at blissy.com/strongpod. That's BLISSY.com/STRONGPOD and use code STRONGPOD to get an additional 30% off. Your skin and hair will thank you. You've lived a lot of different lives. You've made a lot of really big transitions. So,
yeah,
um, it is pretty fascinating to me because they all feel so dramatic.
yeah,
They're not gradual. I
yeah,
think, from moving to the United States, Ohio, New York, you have a baby, suddenly you're a single mom when your
yeah,
son's only a year old.
yeah.
Um, you land into this job. It's now led you to Coca-Cola. How did you transition into becoming a writer? Where did that start? I know you said your dad is very creative. You
Yeah,
come from a
yeah.
creative father. Yeah, was that also an outlet? We have running and then there's writing, which seem to
Mm-hmm.
go hand in hand.
Yeah, yeah. I So the identity of writer actually came to me a lot more easily than the identity of being a runner.
Mhm.
When I was little, I would always win like writing competitions
Oh.
in school, like second, third grade. Every time we have like a weekly composition writing class, the teacher would read my work. So I kind of always knew, oh, I want to be a writer. It's just something I really love doing. I always wrote, even though, nothing was officially published. I always kept a writing practice. I have a journal that I've started since middle school. Every year it's a big fat journal. I always wrote. That's how I process things. That's how I keep a memory of stuff. And then I think there's the writing part, and then there's the publishing part.
Mhm.
The publishing part came, interestingly, after a fairly traumatic event. So in 2021, I think around February, right around Lunar New Year time, I was just out on a routine run in Altadena, and I got verbally attacked. That was the peak of anti-Asian hate. There were a lot of hate crime against seniors in Oakland, and seniors were being pushed off the road and dying from those accidents. So I was very aware of those incidents. There were Chinese bakeries, jewelry shops being robbed, vandalized, because there's perception that Chinese people brought COVID into this country. So I was out on a routine run on a Tuesday morning, and this neighbor, so I was running initially without a mask. There was, I think, the second wave of COVID. I had a mask hanging around my neck. And when I saw this neighbor walking towards me, I pulled the mask up, just as protection for me and for her. And she started shouting racial slurs at me and just cursing at me. And it stunned me. I just didn't even think about it until someone else was also walking towards her. And that person did not have a mask. And the person doing the shouting, she didn't have any reaction towards other people but me. Then it just dawned on me. I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense now. She obviously harbors a lot of hatred, and now I'm the target. So I had the chance to write about this incident for Runner's World. It got published in May of 2021. And that kind of launched my writing side gig. So I started writing a lot of profile stories for women runners, women runners of color. And I started writing book reviews. I started writing, performance related topics should runners going through menopause take hormone replacement therapy, all those fun topics. I was very grateful for all that creative liberty that they give me. Yeah. I still write. I started my Substack about a year ago, and that's steadily grown, and very grateful for that. Yeah.
Well, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
You're a great writer.
Thank
and
you.
It's just a wonderful way. You never know who's going to read it.
Yeah.
You never know who's going to read it. And I really feel that whenever we create something, that is our opportunity to connect and to encourage people.
Yeah.
And I really loved reading your Substack. So thank you
you
for putting it out there.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very hurtful. It's hard to listen to that. And I think there's a lot of, that's the other thing too. There's a lot of pieces of your story that, that not everyone understands or has been through before. And which is going to actually lead me to the next part of this podcast, talking about you losing your house, losing everything.
Yeah.
And when you first arrived today, that was one of the things you and I, we were kind of lighthearted about. It's like nobody ever thinks that their whole house is going to burn down. We joke about it, especially as moms. You're like, don't leave the stove on. You're going to burn the house down. It's like, it's kind of just, but you don't really ever think that's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And so, the whole world has watched. First we saw the devastation in North Carolina. And a lot of us had friends, a lot of runners in that community that are still building back up.
Yep.
And then we see at the very beginning of this year, just it's been like a horror movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost unbelievable to see the fires in Southern California and the absolute destruction on levels that you'd only see in a movie.
Oh, I know.
And so I think our listeners would, I know they would be very interested to hear what this experience has not only been like for you, but just how you are moving forward right now. And so we'll kind of rewind back to just the day of, because I think this is where Eddie jumped in. I was like, wait, hold on. I don't want to tell the whole thing. I want this for the podcast. But, it was just a normal day.
It was just a normal day.
So go ahead and start from there. You guys were having dinner.
So it was Tuesday, January 7th. The weekend prior, we had just celebrated Colette's 9th birthday. It was just a normal work day. I worked till about 6:30 p.m. And my friend Myra calls me. For those who doesn't know about Mara Garcia, she is wife of Jerry Garcia, who won the 2017 AC 100 race. Anyway, she's an ultra runner, a brilliant
Jerry
person.
Garcia is a legend in the SoCal running community. Yeah. And everyone loves them.
Yes.
It's
Yes, they're such great people.
Yes, they are.
So Myra is one of my closest friends, and she calls me. She said, Jinghuan, I need you to watch the fire, the Eaton fire. It's getting very close to you. Download this app called Watch Duty.
What a friend, by the way.
I know. She's done that for so many people. She's saved so many lives. So I download this app. I start monitoring the house. The house was in a mandatory ready zone. It's in the yellow zone. The highest priority is obviously mandatory evacuation. You're in the red zone, and then it's the yellow zone, it's the green zone. So I kept a watch on it, and my son Sammy was the one that made dinner that night. He made steak and pasta. We took our time just eating. And Mara calls again. She's like, I think you need to evacuate. She was a social worker before her position at Hoga. She's very plugged into all these things. I'm like, okay, I probably need to listen to her. So we start packing, but I didn't take it that seriously. I thought, you know what? We're just going to pack some clothes for a day. We're going to go to our friend Lehman's house in Tahunga, and tomorrow morning we'll be back. So I just packed about one night worth of clothes, packed some documents, and my daughter Colette was the one that's so intuitive. So she packed a mug that says Wilder. It's a mug that I got from Lauren Fleshman's writing retreat last May. It's my favorite mug. I use it almost every day, and so Colette packed that for me.
Wow.
And I said to her, Colette, there's no need to pack that mug. just put it back. She said, Mom, if our house burns down, you're going to be glad I packed that for you.
Wow.
So we have that to this day. Anyway, so we took our time to evacuate. We stayed with my friend Lehman in Tahunga. The next morning, I checked the app again, Watch Duty, and the house has gone from being in the yellow zone to the red zone, mandatory evacuation. So I tell Sammy, I'm like, okay, let's go back to our house. Let's try to grab some more stuff and check on the house. So we left around 8 in the morning. Tahunga to Altadena is about 4 or 5 miles, short drive. The moment we got to Altadena on the 210 freeway, the sky just went from, 8 a.m. feeling like normal morning feeling to, oh my God, we just entered like a war zone. The sky went from, brightness to completely dark, and it was raining ashes. It was impossible to breathe. You started to smell all the smoke, and it felt like we entered a different world. So we got off the 210. A lot of the streets were just blocked. We took 2 different cars, so we ended up being separated. I had to zigzag my way. I couldn't find how to get to the house. A lot of the streets were blocked. It was very hard to see. The wind was still blowing 80 miles an hour. So I parked my car at a gas station very close to the house. My son Sammy, I don't know how he drove through all those different block streets. Eventually, he made it back to the house. When I parked at the gas station, I just started walking up north to try to make it to the house. I had this run scarf in the car, so I pulled over my face in order to breathe. At some point, the wind got too strong, so I stopped and tried to catch my breath. And then I realized a car pulled over me, and that was Sammy. And he said, Mom, get in. We got to go. So I hop in the car.
How did he find you? Do you guys have like Life 360
Yes,
on your phones?
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's exactly what we had.
Okay.
Yes.
Because we have that, and it's been very helpful over the years. Yeah.
Yes.
So he was looking for you.
He was looking for me.
Wow, that's
he
amazing.
He found me, and then he got me in the car. The first thing he said was, Mom, our house was gone. I was like, wait, what? What did you just say? He said, our house is gone. And then he said, Mom, we got to go. It's still burning. It was still very hot. And then he said, Mom, that was not safe for you to walk like this.
Look at
and
him.
He also said, Mom, I know it wasn't safe for me to drive by, but I had to go see it. So we drove back.
What a mature boy.
I know. We drove back.
Wow.
Yeah. And it took me a minute for that to sink in. Like, the house is gone. I'm like, wait, really? Then he showed me all the pictures, and he also recorded a little video. It was hard to believe because our entire street was gone. He said it took me a while to actually figure out what street I'm on because all the streets were gone. I had to specifically look for signs, and the visibility was very low. But eventually he found it, and yeah, he was the first person to see how it was all entirely burned down. Yeah, it was hard. It was hard. Yeah. For the next couple of days, we couldn't go back to the house because the National Guard was there. They blocked a lot of different areas. I think we waited over a week to go back.
It's been so hard.
It was hard to see that. And it was also hard to just, even though we had masks on, to breathe, to see that total destruction. You see little pieces of ceramics. You see you obviously see the big stuff, like the refrigerator. I can see, oh, that was the refrigerator. And
So you went back a week later. So you and Sam drove back to where you were staying.
Yep.
Which that was with friends at the time?
Yeah.
So was your daughter waiting at home for you guys?
Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
What was that like? So you guys had to drive home separately in your own cars?
Yes.
Because Sam had his car, you had your car.
Yeah.
What was that drive like going back? What was going through your head?
Oh my God. Yeah. I just didn't think it was real. Yeah. I just thought, oh my God, this really happened to us? Like, how could this happen?
So you're in shock.
Totally in shock.
Complete shock.
Completely in shock.
You now knew you had to tell the rest of the family.
Yep. We told the rest of the family. I think everyone was in shock. Sammy showed the pictures. I think that's also when all the texts start to come in because a lot of friends saw it on the news. The Eden Fire in Altadena, they put two and two together. A lot of friends reached out. So I started telling friends, oh, we actually lost our house. And just hundreds of texts coming in at the same time. And then I'm like, oh, I got to get on insurance. I got to start filing insurance. And then people telling you, oh, you got to file for FEMA. You got to do this and that. So from that moment on was triage mode. Like, I got to get done. This needs to get done.
What did you have with you? Did you have your computer with you?
I had, thank God.
That's amazing.
I had the computers.
So you had the computer. So right away you get home. How did the rest of your family react? Were they just like, no, this can't be true? Or was it panic? I can't imagine what that must have felt, especially as a mom.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of moms, we kind of pride ourselves in keeping house and making sure everyone's okay and that everyone's taken care of and everyone has what they need. And that's your home. That's the safe haven.
Yeah.
So what was that?
Yeah. I think initially it's all disbelief.
Yeah.
It's really hard to accept. Like you said, you imagine all kinds of horrible things, maybe a car crash, like all those things happening to you. But fire, and a fire on this scale where over 9,000 structures destroyed, it never crossed our minds. So I think for a long time we just couldn't believe it. And then because I'm very much in the doers mode, it just kicked me into this hyper gear of getting shit done. I have so much to get done. I gotta get this application. There's this clothing donation. Friends are texting me, so I gotta text them back. My friend Jordan was one of the first to reach out and set up a GoFundMe. I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do. I just went into a hyper getting shit done mode. I think the rest of the family, they're obviously in disbelief and they're processing it. I think the kids, it's really hard because, I went into the house and as an adult. For them, it's their childhood home. It's all they have known. And it's entirely gone. So yeah, for them, it's a different processing. It's a different relationship, different processing mechanism. So yeah.
So you don't let yourself feel too much the heaviness. It's just now I need to take care of the rebuilding.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just immediate. And that, I mean, that's overwhelming in and of itself, especially when, you're probably still trying to go to work, that you want the kids to have somewhat of normalcy.
Yep.
Did you guys stay with your friends for that week? What great
Yeah.
friends to house
I know.
your whole family.
I know. So we
Yeah.
stayed with my friend Lehman for 3 days. And then we went to Gardena to stay with my best friend Karen for another 3 days. And then we were in a hotel back in Pasadena for about 10 days.
Okay. And that was your insurance took care of
Yeah, the hotel.
the 10 days.
Mhm.
What did you go as a family
Yeah.
to see your home?
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what was that like for you when they said, okay, you guys can come and look at your house. What
Yeah.
was that like for you?
It was very hard. I think it was hard to just walk on the street where my kids used to play on, ride their bicycles on, and to see it going from very vibrant to total destruction. All the houses are gone. All you see is pillars of their old fireplace, and that's all you recognize. Everything else is gone. It's just rubbles. I had this fantasy, I'm gonna all just sit down one day and go through the rubble and see what I can save. Because I read this story. Some fire chief actually found his wedding ring in there. I'm like, okay, maybe I can find something. But once we get there, you're like, oh, there's nothing to salvage. You see pieces of maybe ceramics. I saw there's a big bulk of paper that's probably either books or something that's entirely burned. The kids can make out, oh, yeah, that was my room. This is mom. This is your room with dad. This is this is where you used to work, because the standing desk that looks like the skeleton of the standing desk. It was very hard to see the total destruction. Like everything turned to ashes essentially.
So you found nothing. I mean,
Nothing.
there is not one whole piece of anything.
No.
Wow.
Nothing. Yeah. Entirely burned. It's just how quickly it happened. It was just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when you guys came to the street, did you see neighbors? Did you see other people that were in the neighborhood also surveying their houses as well? I mean, what was...
Yeah, that day we saw neighbors on other street, but not on our own street. And then we also saw a sign, I think was put by the LA County Public Work or something. It just says our street number, and it says hazardous. So the whole area is considered, risky, hazardous, because all the toxins in that burned material. Yeah.
Wow. So you guys surveyed it, and then it was just, okay, time to go
Yeah.
back to the hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing left. And I was trying to create a sense of normalcy too. The kids were out of school for about a week.
From Christmas break, right? Or just that area.
That
No,
area.
Christmas break was already over when
Right.
you guys... Yeah.
Yeah, it was that area.
It was the whole area.
Yeah. So my son, who's in high school, they were off for a week because of the smoke. Colette was off for about 2.5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they were not in school yet. And then eventually they started school. Eventually we're very lucky to have found a rental in Arcadia. So now we've been in the Arcadia house for about almost 2 weeks now.
So the city of Arcadia is like 20 minutes from Altadena. What's the...
South. Yeah.
It's south of Altadena. So you literally have now had to transplant into a new city. So so what are the steps now? Is that where you're going to... Do you guys want to make that your new home? Are you wanting to rebuild? How has that been for you?
Yeah. So we signed a 1-year rental lease for the place in Arcadia. We haven't decided whether to rebuild or to buy another house. Either one is a costly, time-consuming, expensive endeavor. With rebuild, obviously you have to get an architect and get your plan done and get your permit approved. They have a accelerated timeline for approving the permit, but then you have to build like to like, so you cannot make your house much larger. You're only allowed to build something that's about 10% larger than your original house.
Wow.
So that's rebuild. Then you have to think about, managing contractors, getting your supplies. I know nothing about construction. How's that going to get done? So that's rebuild. Or you could buy, relocate. That's another option. But real estate is already very expensive in Southern California. And with so many people displaced, I don't know if we can afford to buy something very quickly. So yeah, we're taking it day by day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what is that like now that you guys are in Arcadia?
Mm-hmm.
How's that been for your kids? I'd love to know how your kids are doing and how they're moving through all of this. I mean, it's hard when you're a little kid. As you were saying, where they grew up, that's all that they've known.
Yep.
Essentially, and everything is so much more magnified when we're kids, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything is a very big deal.
Yep.
And how have they been?
I think there is almost comfort in knowing that they were not the only ones that lost their house.
That's interesting.
There's collective strength in, knowing, my classmate so-and-so, my friend so-and-so also lost their house. So that was at least somewhat comforting.
That's really interesting.
They're not doing this alone.
Yeah. I feel like when we lose someone close to us or we go through hard things, that's one of the things that helps us through are connecting with other people that have been through something hard before.
Yeah.
And so for your kids, they are able to see that it happened all around them.
Yeah, exactly.
That they don't feel like, why is my life so
difficult?
Yeah, it's just my house.
Yeah,
but it's
exactly.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And they're also showing resilience I didn't know they had. They're carrying on with their days. They're trying to just go back to their routines. So for my son, his commute has gotten a lot longer. It used to be 7 minutes. Now for him to get to high school, it's about half an hour. So his commute is a lot longer. For Colette, it's about the same. It's just, because Colette's school, so many of the kids were also displaced. Some kids already transferred to other schools. Her schools were more disrupted. For my son, more or less okay. I think for his high school, if I remember correctly, maybe 30 to 40 teachers also lost their homes. So yeah, the whole community is dealing with it. And they're, with a big challenge like this, there are always people coming out of their way to help. So they have also seen firsthand how many people have stopped by to see us, how many people have, donated to our GoFundMe, drop up clothes, taken us out to lunch, all these things. They're also feeling all the love. So I'm very proud of how they've been dealing with it. We've had really, really hard moments where we just cried and did not want to get out of bed. But most of the days, we try to carry on with our days, getting things done, making sure they go to their after-school activities. And I'm in awe of their strength. Yeah, very proud of them. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Manukora Honey. Are you looking for something simple and delicious to add to your wellness routine? Are you a honey fan like me? I love honey. One of my favorite things is a peanut butter and honey sandwich, in addition to any type of tea. I love to add honey. Now, you have to try Manukora honey. It is on its own level. It's rich, creamy, and the most delicious honey you've ever had. Manukora honey contains powerful nutrients to support immunity and gut health. See, the bees collect the nectar from the manuka tree in New Zealand, and the nectar is packed with bioactives, and the honey that is produced has 3 times more antioxidants and prebiotics than your average honey. And a special antibacterial compound called MGO also comes from the nectar of the tea tree. Manukora third-party tests every single harvest for MGO and makes these results available through their QR system. It's a game changer. And now it's easier than ever to try Manukora honey. Head to manukora.com/Sally to get $25 off the starter kit, which comes with an MGO 850 plus a Manuka honey jar, 5 honey travel sticks, a wooden spoon, and a guidebook. That's MANUKORA.com/SALLY. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of questions here. I mean, we're just 30 miles south of you.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the difference between Orange County and Los Angeles, it can sometimes feel like a state away,
Yeah.
a completely different state. And but it's the feeling of helplessness, I think, that people have felt here in Orange County has also there's been a big surge of help. A lot of friends close to us that have restaurants. We have a couple friends that have restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
Just to see the effort that was built up to send supplies into LA. I know that really blessed Eddie and I. We've known 4 families directly.
I know.
Who lost homes in Altadena.
Wow.
And it's just, the hit has been so hard, but we've had so many discussions about that where it's like, there's just something about a fire that is just, it's because it just decimates everything.
It's so primal. It's such a primal fear.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way that you describe just going back the next day thinking that you're going to grab another bag of stuff.
Yeah.
And that it's just this wall of black smoke.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's midnight.
Ash. Yeah.
I mean, again, that's like something you see in a movie.
Yeah, it feels unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's my biggest fear. I was driving Colette to school a couple of days ago. It just dawned on me these incidents might become more often, more routine, right? I hate to put it so generalized, but climate change has fundamentally shifted how we live these days. You know, like what happened in Asheville, all the hurricane, all these extreme weather patterns. This was caused by wind blowing 80 to 100 miles an hour. And then, electricity wires cross and there's a spark and the fire quickly spreads. Things like this will happen more and more often. And then people are going to get displaced. Literally, it dawned on me the other day, I'm a climate refugee. Do I have more resources at my fingertip? Do I know how to kind of navigate this? Yes, kind of. But there will be people who are pushed out of, their usual habitat and they're forced to leave the place they grew up in and they have to move out of state. It breaks my heart to see communities torn apart by a huge disruptive incident like this.
And that's something I know you and I had talked about earlier too. I did ask her, are people moving away? Are people is the situation so traumatizing that the idea of rebuilding in a place that just is that scary? It's not reliable. I mean, do you guys ever talk about not living in Southern California anymore because of it?
I think we'll always live in the LA area. We're a mixed race, blended family. We love the diversity of SoCal. I don't think we'll move out of the state, but to a different place, maybe. Rebuilding does seem very daunting because one question you always ask is, what if this happens again?
Yes.
How do I make sure this doesn't happen again? It happens once. You rebuild, how do you make sure it doesn't happen again? That's entirely a possibility. And I also think because it's so traumatizing, the place triggers a certain memory. Do you really want to, build a house on that? And I don't know.
Yeah, that's been a thought in my mind for everyone that's rebuilding. Is it just so heartbreaking? And I think even just for a parallel in life, sometimes things feel so broken that that we don't want to rebuild. I think it takes courage to do that. It takes courage to rebuild and believe and have hope that things will be better or things could change.
Yeah.
You were saying that you had neighbors who have already moved out of the state.
Hmm.
I think one of the most heartbreaking things you shared was just some of these the elderly, the seniors,
Yeah.
who, they're in their 80s,
Yep.
and this is the house that was home for them their entire lives. And I think it was the hotel
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you were staying in.
Yep. Yep. We
Um,
saw a lot of displaced families like ours
mhm,
and, seniors in their 80s, 90s
mhm,
walking on their canes, carrying their medications, and not having a home. That breaks
mhm.
my heart. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we're middle-aged maybe, and our
Mhm,
kids are young. We can rebuild again.
mhm,
For them, I don't know what they're going to do.
mhm,
Last night our neighbors organized a street meetup, and we all went and talked about where we are right now, what our decisions are. Yeah, I think one neighbor, she said, "I'm moving into a senior home. I'm
mm,
not going to rebuild. I'm moving to a senior home."
mm.
Yeah,
What are some of the things that have stuck out to you, maybe that have surprised you about yourself in being in this situation, that maybe that you're learning or that you're leaning into? Is there anything that you feel like you're growing in right now?
yeah, yeah. Thank you for asking that question.
Mhm,
So, funny enough, right before the fire, I had just published a piece. I had interviewed Dina Castor.
mhm.
Um,
Wonderful
yes,
woman.
um,
She's amazing.
positive mindset,
Yeah.
and I had just published the piece, and it's about how do you successfully set an intention for 2025, and my intention for 2025 was joy. And
Mm.
and I also wrote about how in order to set an intention, your first step is to radically accept where you are, like running, right? Even when you have an injury, you have to accept it. You have to work with what you have. And I just sat there and thought, oh, this is so fitting to the situation I'm in right now. I radically accept that our home burned down. Prior to January 7th, we have a house and we have a home equity of maybe over $500,000. And after the fire, we still owe the mortgage company about 400,000. We're in 400,000 in
Mm.
debt, and we don't have a home. I radically accept that, and I will still choose joy. I will stick to the intention I've set for this year. I will still choose joy. And
Mm.
one of the things that got me through it is your mantra of choose strong.
Mm.
And, sometimes middle of the night, I wake up, I think, oh my God, how did I not pack this? How did I not pack
Mhm.
that? How did I not pack an art folder of Colette's? How did I not pack my son's Guinness World Record certificate that's on the wall? Then I stop myself. I'm like, okay, we're going to radically accept we don't have those things. We're going to choose to be strong, and we're going to get through this.
Mm.
So I think that is perhaps the biggest growth for me. And the other thing is, I am a lot more tolerant, and in the past when my kids are not feeling well, I'm like, no, I don't care, go to school. Now I'm like, okay, you're not feeling so well, great, let's spend another day at home.
Mhm.
Just hang out, chill at home. If you want to play Minecraft, play Minecraft.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that is
Mm.
also something I've seen. Like, this is a time where everyone can use a little extra love. That they
Mm.
don't need to be pushed. We can all be a little bit more tolerant and loving towards each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's an interesting feeling. I don't know what this feels like to lose all personal possessions.
yeah. I think it's the idea that the possessions are not just material things; they carry memory.
Mhm.
And you're afraid to lose that memory, and that memory is part of you. So you're
Mm.
afraid of losing your own history, your own identity. But
Mhm.
then also know that it's not really lost. You still have those memories. Write it down, reprint some old pictures, rebuild. You're not gonna be the old you anymore.
Mhm.
Radically accept that, and then you can perhaps grow a new you.
What was the hardest thing that you lost as far as materials? There's something in your kitchen and was there running clothes? You're like, that's my favorite
I
sports
know.
bra.
Oh my God, yes. I was sending a friend a photo the other day, and I realized I had a necklace that had a hummingbird on it.
Oh.
I love Wazelle. I have all kinds of Wazelle clothes, and Dr. Sarah Lesko has been really kind, sending a lot of Wazelle stuff to me.
Wow.
But that necklace, I'm like, oh, I don't have it anymore.
Oh.
Because it had a hummingbird, bird, and I also have ear studs that has wings. I'm like, oh, I used to put on all these birds and wing stuff when I race. I don't have any of those, but that's okay. Those are easier to buy than some other stuff. I really regret not packing all Colette's art stuff. She has 2 huge folders of all her artwork. I only packed one. So I'm really regretting not packing the other folder. My son also didn't pack all his music instruments.
Yeah, what instruments does he play? He plays a lot of different instruments?
Yeah, he plays the piano, he plays the guitar, and he's been producing music for the last 3-4 years.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Is he in a band? Is he with other people, or
he's doing his own music?
Solo.
Yeah, music production. I think it's really good.
Yeah.
But I'm biased.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So we didn't pack up any of his music instruments. Yeah, so that was painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have each other.
We have each other. We're all safe and sound.
And you guys are safe. And we've seen the community come around you and love on you. I know you guys were in the news. Wasn't your family in the news?
Yes.
Or I even saw online an article. How did that come about?
So right after the fire, my son and I got contacted by NBC, this news with oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name. Gaddy Schwartz. So we were on live news. That was our first time. He did really well. And NBC News also did a story on us about, as part of the story, what Californians saved over the fire. So we were part of that. And my husband, Jinghuan Tervalon, he's, a renowned writer. So he was interviewed by the LA Times, the New York Times. A lot of people outside of Southern California don't know the history about Altadena. Altadena has always been considered a Black haven. Because of redlining, a lot of Black people could not buy property in Pasadena, so they bought property in Altadena. So there were lots of generational wealth for Black people. Black home ownership there is twice the national home ownership for Black people outside of Altadena. So it's a very special place for Black people, and now a lot of people are displaced. So that's another huge concern. How will Altadena be post-fire? Yeah, is it continue to be a Black haven, or is it going to get gentrified? Developers are going to swoop in and buy the land cheap and rebuild at massive scale. We don't know that. Yeah, we don't know for sure.
There's so much to unpack.
There's a lot,
and we'll be watching. Obviously, we'll be watching and supporting every step of the way.
Thank you.
I know running has always played a big part in your life. We talk about how you first found running as you were healing from heartache. Do you feel that new rejuvenation in that area again? Are you remembering that running is that outlet that allows you to think and clear your mind?
Absolutely. So I did not run for about a week.
Understandably.
We were on,
and the air was really bad
was awful.
too.
You could not run anywhere. But we were at my friend Karen's house, and that morning, because I posted something on my Instagram, I got a lot of hate, and I sat down. I just lost it. I started crying. And Karen came and asked me what happened. I was like, I'm getting all these online trolls. They're all spilling hate.
Oh, gosh.
And it just dawned on me. I'm like, wait, why am I giving these people so much power over me?
Exactly.
Oh, I did not run for a few days. I wasn't myself. So she was kind enough, she gave me a gym pass. So the next day I went to the gym and I ran on the treadmill. And after that, I'm like, bitch, I'm back.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Renewed in strength.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. My sleep pattern is still off. There are days when I can only sleep 4 hours. And there are days when I need like 9-10 hours of sleep. I'm just exhausted.
Right.
So I haven't been back to a very consistent running routine yet, but I'm hoping to do that in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But I've been running here and there.
That's good. Did you have previously? Did you have races on your calendar? What were your plans for this year in racing? And are you still going to do any races?
Yeah, right now I'm not sure. I was really hoping for a really good track season. I'm 42. I'm hoping to do some masters track competition. Right now I'm unsure. The good news is that I'm only 1 mile from Arcadia High School.
Oh, that's nice. Iconic Arcadia.
I know.
Yeah.
The Arcadia me.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I can run here.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to do some sweet workout on that track. And once I have the routine back, I'll feel a lot better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like having a couple workouts a week, a long run on Saturday. That'll be great.
Now you have always been a part of a track club. I know you had a coach for a really long time. Do you still have a coach?
Yep.
Yeah. How's that going?
It's going really well. He said, I know what happened to you and I'm really, really sorry. I'm going to coach you for free the rest of this year. So I'm really, really grateful.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And my teammates at Cal Coast have been super supportive. Maggie and Sarah, they've been, just supporting me with shoes and clothes. So yeah, the running community is the best community.
It really is.
It really is.
Yeah.
Really is.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, where can people follow you? Where can we learn about your journey and support you?
Yeah, thank you. So Substack is probably the best place to find me. I write a Substack called Wings and Spikes.
And your new logo is really cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Shout out to my friend Nicole. She's the one that designed it. So Wings and Spikes, I publish bi-weekly. It's a mix of running stories, other people's stories, and personal essays. Right now, I'm probably leaning a little bit more on the personal essay side, but that's the best place to find me. And I'm also on Instagram under Sandy Channel.
Which is, where did that come from? Where did Sandy Channel come from?
I know. So in high school, when we first started learning Chinese, everyone was supposed to pick an English name. And Sandy...
Why is that?
As part of your learning English, you're supposed to have an English name. So I picked Sandy at the time, even though I go by my real name, Jinghuan.
Yeah.
Sandy was the name I picked. And at that time, I was very much into Coco Chanel.
Okay.
But I didn't want to use Chanel, so I used Channel. So Sandy Channel has been a moniker for a long time. So that's my email. That's my Instagram handle. That was my old Twitter handle. Yeah.
Did you ever use that name when you came to the United? Okay.
No, I did not use it at all. I've always used my real name, Jinghuan. Yeah.
You should.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can follow, and we'll put all those to our listeners. We'll put all those links in the description if you want to follow along, you want to be inspired by some beautiful writing. And yeah, if you're a runner and you read Runner's World or Women's Running or Outside, you've probably read something written by Jinghuan and haven't even known it. But now you do. Make sure you keep up with her. Is there anything encouraging? There's some people actually still running right now. Is you want to leave us with some encouraging words?
I think Choose Strong has been such a mantra that I've adopted, thanks to you, Sally. I think the thing that I want people to understand is that you're never alone in a difficult time like this. There will be communities behind you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And you always have more. There's always more capacity in you. At that time, I was so worried. How am I going to understand insurance claims? How am I doing this and that? I'm figuring it out as I go. You always have more capacity than you imagine. So just have faith and always choose strong.
Absolutely. I love that so much. And you've done that throughout your whole life.
Thank you.
And again, I'm so grateful to call you my friend.
Oh, and I'm honored to call you my friend.
Very grateful to have you on today.
Thank you.
And just as I mentioned in the beginning, you are your name. Both parts
Aw.
of your name. I know the second
Aw.
part of your name is joy, happiness, and delight. And I think it's really interesting that you wanted to choose this year to have joy.
Yeah.
And I see joy and happiness as two different things.
Yeah.
We always want our kids to be happy in everything they do. It's a wonderful feeling to be happy. But joy is in every way strength.
Mm-hmm.
And we can find joy when we've lost everything. And we
Yeah.
can find joy in the rebuilding. And we can find joy when we look around and we choose to.
Yeah.
And it's so evident that that is what you are doing. So thank you for being that light. Continue to shine your one unique light.
Oh.
And to everyone listening today, we thank you for being here, and we encourage you to keep choosing strong in all you do.